Only joking. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, now you're trying to pun me back. Hooray! Hello. Wow, that's weird. There were like 30 people ready to watch, and then all of a sudden it's dropped to 16. Hold on, must be the side of my face, the side of the beard. So, welcome to this week's ramble. I am joined by my admin assistant Crimson, although she's not here. She's about 20 miles that way. Can't make it in person tonight. She's on the chat and going to be sending me things via the telephone. So if I'm looking for, I'm not going to be past post-its. I'm going to be looking at the phone for questions. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Ah, the advert. Ah, yes. Thank you, Teutonic. That's a good. That's a good point. Okay, right then. So yes, I saw. I don't know if any of you saw Liam Dempsey's live stream last night, but I knew he was doing it, and so I popped on to be supportive and sit in the crowd and heckle. And I discovered he had this thing that was like previewing it, and it was up there for hours, and it said what he was talking about and everything. And I thought, that is amazing. So I worked out how to do that, and it worked. The thing I don't know, though, is how far in the future to do them. Should I like set them up a week in advance or something? Seems a bit excessive. Maybe I put it up on the Sunday. But I thought that's a good idea, because then people will get to see what I'm rambling about in advance and decide whether they want to tune in live or not. So, yeah, I know. I did something with technology. That's the first of my 3 side quests completed successfully. I have 2 more side quests that the Discord moderators have given me. One is I've got to set up the little magic robot that posts a link in the Discord every time I post something on YouTube. So it goes, say, hi, Paul has just uploaded this. So that's just one thing I've got to do. The other thing that also the mods have said I've got to do is there's now a thing where you can actually link Discord up to YouTube to let it manage the Discord memberships. So I've been given homework with that as well. Moog's painting word bearers. Well done, Moog. Your decision has been made by other people. Best way. Best way. Take the brain thinking out of it. Yes, so I'm going to be wrangling with the machine spirit to try and make it do that at some point. Me and the machine spirit don't get on. But I saw Liam's one yesterday. Oh my God! Eldar, thank you. Wow, man, I don't know what to say. You keep doing this. Thank you so much. Tesco have still not got any Diet Coke caffeine free in, so I'm still on the Pepsi. So if someone wants to pop down to my local branch and have a word, much appreciated. I'm not surprised there's no Coke sponsorship now. I'm drinking Pepsi. But there's no Pepsi sponsorship either, which is probably just as well, because I'd be drinking Coke all the time and the sponsorship probably wouldn't last. I've digressed already. Where was I going with that? Oh, yes. I saw Liam doing his thing last night, and he's got this box, which is like he presses buttons and stuff happens on screen. It's like a pre-programmable box and he's connected it to Twitch, and I'm not even that sure what Twitch is, but apparently you can simultaneously cast You can simultaneously do the thing on Twitch that you can do on. I don't know. I don't understand these things. One thing I definitely want to work out how to do is how to get a guest on the rambles so I can ramble with someone else, or at someone else, or let them ramble at you. So that's on my mental list of things to ask the machine spirit about. Who knows? Right, so what is new with me? What's new with me? Well, we're working our way through the campaign with Sultan, known as the Medusan Hive. That's oh my god, Mick, thank you. Another legend. There's so many legends. You're all legends, guys. Oh. That's definitely something. We talked about this in the Discord, but definitely going to have when the world is a little bit more normal. We've been talking about having a say Hi Paul like day trip to Warhammer World where we meet up and play some games. That's going to have to happen. That would be awesome. There's a tail walking across the screen. It's probably still attached to a cat, which is good. She's here. So I look a little bit like Blofeld, but without the actual cat. You don't know there's a cat here. Anyway, I should probably start talking about 40k soon because that's why you're all here. No, I've still got a couple of random things to do. So I did a hobby vlog, first one for quite a while, which I really enjoyed. So at the moment, I'm painting Ultramarines. Well, actually, I finished the Ultramarines last night. I'm painting on. I'm painting a few more Ultramar Guard. I've already done some Berserkers. And this weekend, I don't know when or what day, but I'm going to film the next episode of Chasing Serenity, which is the Ultramar versus Khorne mini-series. Got 2 more episodes of those to do. And I've got a couple of ideas for hobby vlogs. I don't know what people think of them. Drop a comment in the vid, or if you're in the chat, drop a comment in the chat. I'm thinking of doing like a series dedicated to my Necrons because I've got buildings to do, and I've got there's a lot of Necrons. And I thought, maybe I could do a vlog series, which some people will like, some people won't. This one, a little bit more controversial. I was thinking, and I haven't decided yet, of doing an unboxing vlog, learn how to play Star Wars Legion, because I've got some holiday time coming up soon, and it's a discrete starter box, and I thought that might be fun. Oh, there you are. That might be fun to do. Don't know, because it's not 40k. Don't know whether people would be interested in watching that. But then again, my ethos is make the content I want to make, and the Woodstock approach. If you build it, they will come. Armada. I should do Armada instead of Legion. I have Armada as well, but Armada's less of a hobby vlog. Armada's more of learn how to play. Yeah, exactly. So Star Wars, what's that? Right. 40k time. Yes, so there was a conversation in the Discord yesterday, and it sparked something in my brain, because the conversation was around sort of differences between like second ed, previous editions, different ways to play and different approaches to the game. And And I thought, what is interesting, or what could be interesting, would be to talk about sort of the differences with second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth editions, and not so much all the rules. Well, I'm sure I'll randomly think of some ruly type bits, but more about the sort of the way the game's played and what the world was like then, and the sort of I don't know, sort of the ethos of playing, and all I can really do is talk about that through my experience. So I thought it might be a nice little bit of nostalgia for some people, or random bits of info for some people who never who are newer. Yes. More games and shots. These draws are all full as well, Adrian. I mean, all right, here's a random thing. What on earth am I going to get by just putting my hand in this drawer, delving a little bit, and then pulling out what it is? Could be anything. No idea. Space Wolf Primaris upgrades. There you go. Bit of random for you. Uh-oh. And then if I randomly delve into this drawer, I mean, these aren't games I'm pulling out. There's... okay, here's some kind of plastic bag. Oh, it's a large oval base. That's less interesting. Less interesting than, I don't know, an old metal inquisitorial retinue. And these look like Blood Angel Terminator bits. Right, enough of that. Don't tempt me to start opening drawers and stuff. See, I've been distracted enough already. Yeah, second Ed. So, stay on target. If that must be a film reference. What's that? Keep it tidy. You can't see the mess. The mess is. Meh. So yeah, second Ed. The conversation that sparked it was someone said I'm gonna play my first I'm gonna play my first game since second Ed. What do I need to know? And there were various different other comments and different perspectives, and I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. And no, it's a Star Wars reference. I was trying to pick up Moog on the fact that he said, Star Wars, what's that? And then, like, 10 lines later, makes a Star Wars reference. You expected a lobster to be pulled out first. No, the lobsters are here. This one isn't affected by gravity, apparently. There we go. So yeah, second Ed. So one of the big things that sort of struck me in this conversation was a lot of people have said in the past that second edition was a very complicated game, and the conventional wisdom is that 8th, 9th is a straightforward game. It is not a particularly complicated, but it struck me that 9th edition, I think, again, this is all just my opinion, so well, obviously you've tuned in to listen to my opinion, so that's all good. 9th edition is as complicated, in fact, I would say more complicated than second edition. But the difference is that the complexity in 9th edition is all in the codices. your main your main rule set is only sort of 20 pages, which makes it quite straightforward. But the actual the ad mech is a prime example. You've got units with very specific keywords. They're either Skitarii or they're called Mechanicus, which they're core or they're not. There are some units which buff everyone around them or one specific unit, things that give other units the core keyword. And because it's all incredibly sort of componentized, it's all very... It's not an intuitive thing to turn to one page and see everything you need, because all of the rules are all over the place. They're in lots of different pockets, and there's nothing that actually directs you to what you need to know. It's a web, and you have to look for it and search for it and find it out. Whereas in the past, they might have said, things like, this particular unit has this rule. And but they don't do that now. They talk keywords in case they want to use any of the other keywords subsequently. And it's so many different combinations of keywords and abilities that can only be used once. And in the case of the Necrons, I was looking at this the other day, or abilities that you either get this one or that one, or with the AdMech, there's a positive and there's a negative. You only get one of these. You don't get both. These things don't. They don't interlink. Whereas in second ed, in the codices, what you had in the book or in the codex, you had loads of narrative, loads of lore, loads of pictures of miniatures, loads of all your points and everything, and just your unit entries that said, these are some of the special rules, but these are the weapons that they've got, and these are the rules that they interact with. And the complexity was actually in the main rule set. You had things like Overwatch, where you could skip a turn of shooting. You had hiding, where you had to sort of be concealed. Then you could become fully hidden. You can only see if you were in a certain range of them. You had psychology, where something might be stupid and you had to take a leadership test. You had fear, terror, which modified things sort of up and down. What were vortex grenades? So grenades, the distance you could throw a grenade was twice your strength. A vortex grenade, you threw it, it landed wherever it landed, and you had to scatter it from where you aimed it, and anything that was touched by a vortex grenade was destroyed. So you could run up to a bloodthirster, pull the pin out, lob it, and the bloodthirster just goes poof. And that was when bloodthirsters they were immense. They were immense. And but the thing is, it didn't disappear. It stayed there, and it floated around back onto the guy who threw it. And if you only had a strength of 3 and you only threw it a little distance, oh, dangerous. But if you had a higher strength and you could lob it to 12 inches, that was a lot safer. But they were great fun. There was loads of little things like there were loads of little things like there was a strategy deck where you got to draw a card before the start of the turn. Before the start of the game, and it was kept secret and you could play it on your opponent. I remember one of the strategy things was a virus outbreak, which basically utterly destroyed an army that didn't have armor, because it affected everything within 2 inches. If you passed an armor save, you'd survive. If not, you'd die, and then everything else within 2 inches again affected as well. So all your armies with a 6-up save, just at the start of the game, you play the You would. You'd play the virus bomb, and you'd resolve it before the game started, and they'd have like 10 orcs left, and that'd be it. Official apology saying, "We're sorry, we didn't really do that." The way you played in second ed was different, and I guess that's where I got play style from. You didn't know. So transports, for example, you didn't know that what was in your opponent's transport. They didn't have to tell you. It was, and you didn't ask. One of the things that you get these days in 40k is you get the idea of gotchas, and a lot of people say I hate gotchas because I want to know what I'm fighting and so on. Actually, from a narrative point of view, I love gotchas because I, as a general, shouldn't know everything about my opponent. I should be surprised, and then I have to try and react to that situation. I remember in one game against Winters, I charged my orc. I consolidated my orc knobs in. No, I charged a unit of his Death Guard with some of my orc knobs. And he said, "You sure you want to do that?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you want to know about the thing that they can do?" I'm like, "No, it's not going to change any. It's not going to change my decision in any way, shape, or form." It was like, okay. And then he just hosed them down with this acid, and they like all melted. And I was like, "Shoot him! More Daka! Lads, Daka on that now." Like, "Oh, should we go and hit it?" "Oh, I'm not getting that close." It was cool and it was fun. And the missions had little quirks in them. So one of the things I loved was in the Tyrannid Codex, because where you used to have work in second ed was you each draw a mission card, and that was what you had to try and achieve. So like assassinate was you had to kill the enemy's general, you got points for that. You also got points for doing other things. You also got things for like table control and so on. But you had a primary objective. If the Tyrannid player drew Tyrannid Assault, it overrode everything else. The game lasted 2 turns longer. Games back then were 4 turns. The game automatically lasted 6 turns. Every single Tyrannid unit recycled, and the victory conditions were if the Tyrannid's opponent is annihilated, the Tyranids win. Any other result, Tyrannid loss. Oh, it was amazing. These were like in games where you can only move 4. Hormagaunts would like move 18 inches across the board. You're like, because one of the big differences back then was you had far fewer shots and they did far less. So you didn't expect them to do a lot. You expected to be able to whittle. And the close combat was brutal. But you expected close combat to be brutal. You could get loads and loads and loads of hits in close combat, which sort of represented besting your opponent. The way close combat worked was you had your weapon skill and you rolled a dice, and you added the roll of the dice to the weapon skill, and you compared it to your opponents, and whoever got the highest, they scored the difference in number of hits. And there were things to modify it. Like if you had a weapon, it was -1, it was harder to fight. If you had a sword, you got an extra dice to roll. So if you had 2 attacks, you rolled 2 dice to pick the highest. 6s got you an extra point, all stuff like that. And in the Tyrannid book, before the start of the game, you had to make a roll for every unit in the opponent's army to see if any of the units were affected by the long go on, and everything's fine. But there was one result, and I know it was called Jones is acting strangely. This guy had like a Tyrannid parasite in his brain. I can't remember what he did. There was one that exploded in a Barb Strangler explosion, and they were nasty back in the day, Barb Stranglers. Your opponent had like 1 on his Hive Tyrant, or maybe an extra 1 on the Warriors as well. And you also had allies. So the way you picked your army was a minimum of 25% of the points of your army had to go on troops. No, units. That's right, it was units. So everything was either characters, units, or vehicles / support. Or it was also up to 50% on allies. It was maximum 50% on characters, minimum 25% on units, maximum 50% on vehicles and support, maximum 50% on allies. And interesting because the battle reports you saw in White Dwarf, they were all sort of okay, I'm playing Ultramarines. I've got these tactical squads, this assault squad, this devastator squad, led by a captain. It's like, yes, okay, this is what a Marine army looks like. And you sort of did. It was the norm to build your army around what they said in the book the armies were, how the composition. They also had things like vehicles. Vehicles. They had armor values, and the armor values were sort of like, it could be like a 10 or a 20 or a 25 or whatever. Whenever you hit a vehicle, you had to roll on a little table to see what part of the vehicle you hit, and different parts of the vehicles had different armor values. And they each had their own little damage table for what might happen. So you might hit the track of a Land Raider and blow the track off, and you had to spin it round you had to use a scatter dice to see where it landed, and then which way it faced, and then it was immobile if you'd shot the track off. But you could still fire all the guns, people get in and out of it, and so on. There was one where there was an explosion inside the crew compartment, and all the crew were dead. But Tech Marines had a rule that said they can crew any Space Marine vehicle. So your Tech Marine could run up to the dead Land Raider, get in, and man the last cannon. So the way the armor thing worked was it was the strength of your weapon plus a d6 plus the number of wounds that the weapon did, and the wounds could be d4, d6, 2d6, d8, d10, d20. So you could get some really big uber hits, and or the vehicle could just go bang in one go, or it could relentlessly take. I probably shouldn't do it. You can probably hear it on the camera, or relentlessly take the punishment, which was really cool. And yeah, you played it. The missions all. I don't know if it was a combination of the missions or the narrative feel of it. Fighting an opponent was difficult for a start. Most of my games of Second Ed were either against my dad or in my local GW on like a games day where they had one table in the shop and there were like 30 kids in there and you were all lined up on one side or another with your 2 or 3 units. Yeah. Oh, Thomas, the shock attack table. So shock attack guns. In order to have a shock attack gun, you used to have the mech with the shock attack gun. You used to have a runt herd and a unit of snotling bases, and the snotlings represented the ammo. So each time you fired it, you had to decide how many of the bases of ammo you were shooting through. Then after a while, as a Space Marine player, when you see what the gun is doing, you can shoot the ammo. It's easier to kill the ammo. Yeah. And you'd get things like Terminators being killed because a snotling materializes inside their visor and scratches them to death. Or, like inside them, a Dreadnought gets merged with a unit of snotlings. And this is just... Oh, weird boys. They had... I can't remember the mechanic. You had to make some kind of test if you had lots of boys around you, and it could then you had to roll on a table, which could lead to explosions that kill things around you, or it could lead to your head blowing up, or all sorts of different things. But I remember weird boys used to come with minders. You used to have a weird boy had 2 minders, and what they would do would be drag the weird boy into the battle because they were desperately trying to get away, and didn't want because it hurt their heads. So the miners had to drag him in. So if the miners got killed, the weird boys' behavior, they would run to the edge of the battlefield. And but the Warped had 4 minders, and those minders had to hold the weird boy back because if you put them near too many boys, their heads would just blow off. But if the weird boy's minders got killed, the Warped's minders got killed, they would run forward to the greatest concentration of orcs, and just they'd be like a Catherine wheel, exploded all over the place. Yeah, lots of fun, lots of crazy, lots of random. But when you knew it, you knew it. It didn't change for 4, 5, 6 years. It was pretty static. There was no, certainly not in my circles, there was no concept of, is this balanced, or is this unit too powerful? And that sort of persisted through sort of 4th, 5th, 6th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. No, maybe not towards the end of 7th. No, I think it kind of did in 7th. So I kind of bypassed 3rd. That was my university hiatus. Quick check on the messages. See if there's anything I'm missing. Okay, come back to those. Just making sure not super missing anything. So when the 3rd plus era came along, the big change was one of the big changes. The big change, one of the big changes. They took away movement as a characteristic. We're all familiar with movement now, but that is a recent returning thing. Movement was done away with, and everything moved to flat 6 inches. Apart from vehicles have their own rules, and you were a different type of vehicle depending on whether you were a tank, or whether it was fast, whether you were a skimmer, whether you were an Eldar skimmer. That was different somehow. But the big change was in 2nd, all your moving happened in the movement phase. Ironically, you could either move, march, or charge. So if you were going to charge, you did it in the movement phase. And then obviously you couldn't shoot because you were charged in the movement phase. And it was always double your move was your charge distance. You couldn't measure then, obviously, so you had to judge whether or not you had to judge whether or not you were in range, because if you declared the charge and you weren't in range, you failed. So the big shake-up 4th ed-wise was the splitting of charging in the assault phase. And it made it much more dynamic. You actually got the sort of feeling that the units were able to have multiple roles on the battlefield. They could just either fighting or shooting. They could do both in a given turn, which was which was different. And the other big thing, I think someone in the chat, I just noticed it out the corner of my eye. Yes, now that is, I was just coming onto that, Nick, so it's very timely. Deployment in 2nd ed was, and this is one of my favorite mechanics, but I can see why it's not perfect. Deployment in 2nd edition was the lowest strategy rating deploys first. So like orcs had a strategy rating of 2, Tyranid to a 1, Marines were 5, they were the highest. Lowest strategy rating deploys first. What they did do was they changed it. Everything, they did away with this sort of just units and characters, and they brought in the concept of HQ, troops, elite, heavy support, fast attack. And you had to have 2 troops in an HQ. You could have a maximum of this many troops, and then you can have up to 3 fast, up to 3 elites, up to 3 heavy support. But that's where they brought in the alternating deployment. And the thing I used to really like about that was the first thing you had to do was put all your heavy down. And that meant these were your sort of cumbersome armor pieces that were much less agile. You had to lay your stall out at the start, and then you alternate with your opponent, and then you can hear two pulls. Oh no! Is there an echo? Echo, echo, echo. So then you had to put your troops down alternating. So the idea was the things would be slight. You would have to deploy in reverse order of how versatile the units were. So you started with your heavy, then went up to your troops. I can't remember when the characters went, but it was then your elite, then your fast attack. So one of the big things that something being fast attack got you was the fact that you deployed it late. So you would be able to deploy it having seen your opponent's deployment. It's sort of, they were good counter deployment units. The missions in sort of the third, fourth, fifth era they were all about points, but you always gained points for killing things as well as your objective. So very often the missions in that era were kind of incidental. Most of them just involved killing each other. Although there was a whole raft of really cool stuff in 4th edition. The sort of the back of the main rule book had loads of custom missions and rules for them. So, for example, you had to have, meat grinder is a good one. But there'd be standard rules, like sentries was a standard rule. So it made you go out and buy like little men with guard dogs to use as your sentries. And I built minefields because if one of the custom missions had obstacles or fortifications, you got to have X number of minefields of a set size, X number of barricades, and you could place them down where you wanted because you were the defender in a narrative scenario. And that made the missions feel really super warm and huggy and narrative, which was really awesome. Really like that. I resisted quite a while the shift to 4th ed from 2nd. Myself and my group, we shunned the simplicity of that edition because things like the main thing that I didn't like was the armor pen. They changed it to it's your strength. You add D6 and you either beat a number or you don't. The fact that a hit on a vehicle was just a hit on a vehicle, irrespective of where you hit them. Now, it was a little bit more complicated than I originally thought. There were armor facings that you had to account for, and the armor values were different. And they had the concept of whether the hit went through the armor or just sort of scuffed off it. And there were a couple of different damage tables. But compared to what there was in 2nd, where all your vehicles had their own damage tables, it was fairly basic. So I wasn't terribly happy for that reason. It's also they stripped out the psychic phase and they made all psychic abilities. You make a leadership test and it either works or it doesn't. And they interwove them with shooting abilities and other things, and they really took psychers down a notch. In 2nd, psychers were a big deal. If you had a powerful psyker, you could dominate. You could absolutely dominate. But equally, taking your own psyker could really keep your opponent's psyker down because it was a deck of cards in 2nd ed, and you rolled 2d6 to see how warpy it was, and if you roll like a 7, you'd deal out 7 cards. And if it was your turn, you'd end up with the 4, and your opponent would end up with the 3. And each spell, psychic power, had a number of force cards needed to activate it. So if you had like 2 force cards in your hand, it was a force 2, you go, yeah, there you go. But your opponent might have a nullify card that you play to stop it. They did away with all of that. And I missed the psychic phase. Being a big Eldar player, in second ed meant I really did miss the psychic phase. That was another thing that made me pout and not want to change up. But eventually, I did get along quite well with fourth ed. I mean, some of the things that were more simplistic, I was okay with. But one of the big differences there is to now is that things were static. You had your codex. You might have an FAQ, but it would just be clarification. You'd have one of them, and the codex would be redone at somewhere between 4 and 6 years. I think the Necron Codex, the Dark Eldar Codex, they lasted for a number of editions with the same codex, and a lot of the FAQ was about clarifying how the references to rules in the old codex were no longer relevant, or how they played differently now. So things were pretty static. Also, the codices were off back, and they were much less expensive. Now, I'm a big believer in the fact that GW is a business and they need to make money, and I am all for them doing that. But they've done it in different ways over the years. And back then, all the books were relatively inexpensive. So what we would do is, and I don't know how common this is, but we would all get all the codices because they just, it's stuff, it's great. Because you'd read the lore and, I didn't realize what Tau were all about, or whatever it might be. Yeah, so you'd make your lists on pen and paper, and then you wouldn't need to check the book very much because you'd know how much everything costs. A unit of Marines was X, a power weapon, power weapon, not sword, axe, they were all just power weapons, was 15 points, a power fist was 25 points. And they did specific things. Power weapon just ignored saves in close combat. AP wasn't a thing. Yes, so second ed had the armor save modifier like we do now, but sort of third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh had the concept of this weapon will either ignore your armor or your armor will apply entirely. And that, both methods have their charms. I like the fact that, you hit a Terminator with a last cannon. Terminator's a bad example. You hit someone with the last cannon, their armor might hold, or a cracked missile. It's not very likely, but it might hold. But I also liked the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh notion that it either held or it didn't. And what that meant was Marine armies were hard to kill because they pretty much always got their 3+ save, because AP3 weapons that bypassed power armor were rare. Pretty rare. I mean, the most common one was a battle cannon. Above that, you're really into plasma and melter, and they were pretty rare as well. And compared to today, in that era, the volume of shots was low. You didn't expect the Spanish Inquisition. But apparently people used to expect the Spanish Inquisition. They used to write and announce they were coming in like 3 weeks' time, presumably just to put the wind up them before they arrived. 1 minute. Right, we're good. So you felt like your power armor held, whereas you contrast that to today, where many of the things are AP -1, AP -2, they're pretty common. Your power armor, you get basically a sort of 30% chance of saving a shot rather than a 65%, give or take, percent chance of saving the shot. It makes a big difference. The way they regulated the power balance through those editions, I'm kind of lumping third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh in together, as you probably inferred, because they were fundamentally all the same mechanic. There were differences between editions. So, for example, in third and fourth ed, run wasn't a thing. That was fleet of foot that only really fast racers like Tyranids and Eldar got. So you got to move an extra D6 inches. They then changed that to everyone could run, but only the fleet of foot could assault afterwards. So there were changes as you go through those editions. I'm sure other ones will come to mind. But what you had during that period was whenever they brought out a new book, they didn't particularly bring out brand new units. They often refreshed the model range, and maybe they'd bring out one sort of new thing here or there. But the way they kept the sales stimulated was effectively by varying the points on a lot of things. So, Space Marine, and it was toughness 4 with 1 wound and a 3+ save. But if they wanted them to be sort of up here, they were cheaper. Or they sort of moved them around. I think Orc Boys at one point came down to 4 points. Everyone was like, I'm having 100. 6th ed? 5th ed? Something like that. And that was how they applied that sort of economic-y side of things to it at the time. And it's in quite a contrast to because in the narrative at that point, there weren't really new things going on. These were Eldar. This is the story of the Eldar. This is what Eldar do. They've been this way for 30,000 years. This is Space Marines. It's written in this book. It's written in the Codex Astartes. To deviate from this is blasphemy. So there wasn't really anything much new introduced. Things like Tyranids, it was easier for them to put some new stuff in because they're evolving. Yeah, okay. But they'd kind of written into the story that new things weren't a thing. That very much went out the window with 8th, 9th edition. And they kind of flipped from a relatively static game that had the rules refreshed every 4 years and the points in a codex refreshed maybe every 6 to 8. And because you would only ever get the points in the codex, they would never change the points outside of the codex. Hello, Alex Bing. Welcome to Level 2 exclusive content. Good chap. This makes Lemmy happy. I wonder what happens if I put the lobster on Lemmy. Oh, she doesn't like that. I'll take it off before she freaks out. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Am I not putting you on camera enough? The camera's here. It's just... Lobster? Lobster? No. Okay. Oh, you see all the fur on my belly. Lemmy fur. Where was I? Well, obviously, elbow deep and a shoulder deep in a ramble. Not an amble, a ramble. Easily confused. My arm bitten off if I was shoulder deep in an amble. Yeah, a totally different ethos in 8th, 9th. It seems to have stopped being about stimulating sales by changing the meta as such, more producing new models that are better. Because I think they probably got to a point where everyone had many of the models that they wanted, and it was proving difficult to generate sales. That's certainly what they did with Fantasy Battle. They killed it off because they couldn't sell enough new models and created Age of Sigmar. I miss Fantasy Battle. In fact, some of my friends and I we've been playing Blood Bowl on the PlayStation, and we've said we all sort of reminisced of a fantasy battle. So in November, we're getting together for a weekend to Saturday afternoon, to crack open our fantasy battle models and play again. So that's going to be fun. Come on, brain. Yeah, so as I've already mentioned, the complexity went out of the game in 8th, 9th edition. In 7th, it was all sort of 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th, it was all in the sort of universal rules. It was all big, thick rule book, tiny, thin codex. Here are your units. Your units just say these are special rules next to them. Here are the points. So you had to know all the special rules, and that was very cumbersome if you were quite casual. You know, the entrance to being able to play was, here is a massive book, and you have to know it all. Whereas in 8th, it was, here is a pamphlet. You have to know that pamphlet and what's written on the 1 page or 2 pages of the units that you're playing. That super accessible. And they've kind of rode back from that with 9th Ed, and I'll be interested to see, when they have the benefit of hindsight in sort of 4 or 5 years, what that does to their sales, their business model, whether they have still getting the volume of new punters through the door now that they've put all the complexity into the codices, and they've got this strong leaning towards competitive play. Because the other big thing that's changed along all of this is the internet and the ability that we all have to now communicate with each other and to electronically change things. But that's enabled a lot of people to talk about. It's enabled a lot of people to talk about the game and get together and play it, and made organization of competitions a lot easier, or events, let's say events. It's also made it easier for them to respond. I mean, they kind of had to, because a lot of the other game systems out there were very fluid living systems, and GW was really suffering as a result. So I can totally see why they did it. I'm curious to know what the long-term effects on bringing the complexity back in are going to be, because you're not in a situation now in any way where you can, I'm talking about me now, where I can keep track of all of the rules in all the books. I used to be able to do that because they change so infrequently. I can know the points, I can know all the core rules. I play a lot of different armies, and I play them all on YouTube, and I have to learn them each time I play them. I have to look them up. I can't keep them in my head. Points values are almost meaningless now because they change so regularly. I started trying to keep up with it in 8th Ed when they brought out chapter approved every 4 minutes. I'd sit there with the book and I'd update everything. But it gets to the point where it just feels like a chore. And one of the things I have really realized, but me and my group, we all kept up on it all as things all got gradually more complicated. And obviously all the guys in Deployment Zone do that, and do stuff on YouTube. You kind of have to. But I've sort of come to the realization that actually I don't want to do that. I'm happy with whatever it says in this book. I don't need to know that the points have changed. I don't need to know, this is what we meant by this, or, that's a little bit hard because people are using blobs of 50 conscripts and a commissar just executing one of them, so we can't have that. So, okay, I mean, I never used them like that, so I'm quite happy when I flop the book open to say, that's what it says it does. Nice. But it doesn't say that anymore, but, careful. She fell off a lobster. This lobster. or nearly fell off. Her foot slipped anyway. For me, it's about rolling dice and having fun. And as long as I'm having fun, I'm not really fussed about whether I've got the rules exactly right, or whether this actually should be 5 points now rather than 4 points now. It doesn't come into the style of play. It doesn't form part of my 40k world, or the 40k world I want to have. So, but I can easily see how all those Sorry, I need to move the lobsters. Levy's not finding somewhere to sit down. I can see how that would put someone off, thinking this is all too complicated for me to get into, to get my head around. And there's not an easy version of it that says, actually, this stuff, you can disregard all this stuff. I've always thought, when they've had, through all the years of 40k simplicity, I've always thought they should have two versions of the rule set. They should have a core rule set, and they should have an advanced rule set, where this is stuff you can use if you want to. You know, go nuts, knock yourself out. You don't have to. This is basic. This is the fundamentals. There's an episode of Farscape where one of the crew gets imprisoned on this planet, and 90% of the people on the planet are lawyers. And there's like libraries and libraries of all these law books. And the barman says to them, whilst they're trying to form their case, says, yeah, you don't need to know about all of that. This one book the size of a pamphlet, and he hands it to her and says, everything, all that is based on this. This is all you need to know. That's kind of how I feel about 40k at the minute. There's a lot of layers and things that I could really spend the time to really get into, and or maximize this and work out exactly how that works. I don't feel the need to do that for my games, and that's my 40k, which is why I think I'm heading off ramble. That's my 40k. But what I do wish there would be a more straightforward way of being able to open the book and say, this is the core and this is extra. Now I know they have advanced rules and core rules, but you can't actually pick up the book for your chosen army and just use the basic rules. It feels like there's a bit missing that says this is how you get into it. This is how you just have a game. And it feels to me like that's kind of what open play should be. I don't know. I think they've got it. Definitely got the right idea. I think I'm the competitive play and the narrative play and the open play. I think that's definitely the way to go, because they are probably the three main types of play. I don't think they've sort of got the open and the narrative bit right. I think they're all too close to the matchy play side of things. Not very pick-upable, not very storytellable. I mean, the storytelling campaign in 9th is kind of reads to me as this is how you link your match play games together, and here are the consequences and upgrades and downgrades to units between each. And there's a place for that. And I'm all for people liking that and enjoying that. It's not for me, though. That's another rule set I've got to learn, rather than, okay, how do I say, right, I'm playing on an ice world. Here are the ice world rules. Right. There's a warp storm. Ooh, let's get the warp storm card. Right. There's that happening. You know what I mean? That's not quite right. Anyway, I've tangented onto a bit of an all about 9th. And I have probably missed all sorts of stuff and things from the general subject of how 40k has changed. Who knows? Specific questions coming up I may return to in future rambles. But for now, let's go to the phones. Wow, okay. Oh, this message was deleted. 5 unread messages. So, right, let's see what Crimson's been sending me then. Moog is painting word bearers. Are you, Moog? Are you painting your word bearers? You're not typing a response, so I assume you are. Your voice is different, and yet its arrogance is unchanged. Okay, thanks, Davros. How is my voice different? Is it more or less scouse than normal? Tom Bobson, better late than sad. Good evening from Germany. Good evening, Tom. Glad you were able to join us. Wordbearer Terminators. I look forward to seeing pictures in the Discord when you are able to post some. Do you have plans for using your Blood Angels in campaign or standalone bat rep? Yes, I do. There are a couple of complexities with Blood Angels. To use in a contemporary context, I need to do some Primaris Marines for them, because otherwise it's not narratively right that they have 0 Primaris Marines, which means they have to get in the queue behind everything else. I really, really, really want to do the War for Armageddon as a campaign. I've got loads of orcs, only some of which are painted and assembled. I need to do more orcs to be able to do it justice. I also need to paint my orc scenery. So, but for that, I don't need to do any Primaris Marines. So my Blood Angels are in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment. I also don't have a Tyranid army to do any Devastation of Baal stuff with them. So they're kind of not... who was this? Oh, it was Aaron 582 Railways. So Aaron, I do, but they are... at the moment, I kind of follow the path of least resistance. I'm doing the bat reps that I need to do least prep for. And unfortunately, they are on the path of most resistance. New Orc boys, yes. Okay, so some subsequent questions. Well, I need to beef up. So those of you who've seen the finale of the Turning the Tide of the Wah campaign will know I've painted up a little bit of each clan. So I have, as well as my main group of Bad Moons, I've also got some Death Scores and some Evil Sons. I've got quite a few of those. I've got about between 500 and 1,000 points there. So there's enough of those. And I've painted one squad of everything else, one mob and a character. I need to bulk those out so I can... 10 snake bites and a snake bite big boss. No. I need to have 30 snake bites. I need to have 10 knobs with them. I need to have a squig off with tank busters in it. I need to have a squig buggy. I need to have all the random squig riders that they produce. Say need, but I've got to at least make it bigger than just 10 boys. And I've got to do the same with the Goths, and I've got to do the same with the Blood X's. And I want to have the Orc terrain. I need more Orc terrain. I don't need more. I need to build and paint the Orc terrain I've got. But they're so detailed. It took about 5 hours to build one building. It was intense. The path of least resistance there is to build and paint the Necron buildings. And the Necrons, because they're quicker. Because Orcs, very cool, pain in the bum to paint. Because they've got straps, they've got earrings, they've got sort of teeth hanging from necklaces. And it's like, all right, well, the strap on the necklace is leather and the tooth bone, and they take so long. They're fun, but it's such a long process. Necrons, Done. All right. Go back to the phones. I sound like I'm on some. I feel like Philip Schofield on some kind of telethon or going live or something. Blindside, absolutely true. You have to read the entire rule set to understand where are the exceptions to the rule. Not entirely sure which bit that was in reference to, but I think that was probably in reference to the 9th ed codices, whereas back in 8th, you only had to look at the one page pretty much that you wanted to see a unit for, and it referenced like 2 of the special rules. Bosh. Whereas now you've got an old book cover to cover to know which bits interact with what. Trying to work out in the campaign with Sultan where we were saying, right, which of these are what was it? Arc grenade units. And they are called Mechanicus, but they're not core. So this buff doesn't apply to them. Oh, but I can make them core with this stratagem. Or if I put this other guy with them, they become core. And what are these? Are they core? They are core, but they're Skitari, not called Mechanicus. Well, I can use a stratagem to make them count as called Mechanicus as well. Brain melting. And I guess if you've got a couple of armies and you only play those armies and you play them a lot and you really get familiar with the book, that's all cool. My brain hurts. I'm clinging on to my 8th ed codices going, don't update that one. Don't update that one. Not that one. No. Oh, no. Oh, I need a degree in linguistics to work this out. Yeah. Okay, so Mighty Moog said, turning to one page to find what you need might require some sort of table of contents or index, but no. There's no sort of, and I know why. It's because it would become out of date. And the whole reason for them doing things generically with keywords is so things are future-proof. So they could easily release a box of models with the data sheet in that box of models, and it references to all the stuff in the main codex seamlessly. Nice. And if they put something in the codex to say this is how they all link up, then that will be obsolete instantly. I can see why. It hurts. It hurts. Another one from Aaron 582 Railways. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Oh, Teutonic, thank you so much, man. Oh, you guys are... Thank you. You guys are all amazing. Absolutely amazing. My mates and I have modified the rules to still be able to use blast templates and scatter dice on certain guns. Yeah, I like that. I do miss blast templates. I know that not having them speeds the game up, and I know that not having them means that you don't. One of the ways in which it speeds the game up is that people aren't always trying to space out every model to reduce the hit from a blast template. So I have mixed feelings about them. Of course, I don't do that on YouTube because whilst I do have some house rules, they are very specific to fix particular narrative complaints that I have. I have to keep the rule set as close to the 40k rule set as I possibly can, because every tweak I make alienates a part of the audience. Even just being relaxed about certain things, or saying, "Oh, I'm not sure exactly how many points this is. It's within sort of 10 or 15 points either way." Some people, boom, gone. That's so. Yeah, I have to think about the audience and the scope and inclusivity. So that's why I don't use those things. Would you say the goal of the game has changed over the years? Now, it's an interesting one. It's a conversation I was having with Winters. The goal of the game fundamentally is and should be to have fun. So from that perspective, I don't think it's changed over the years. What I do think is that it feels the number of people who derive their fun by winning and winning alone is higher than it once was. The goal for me isn't just to have fun. The goal is that I and my opponent have fun. It's a social activity. I want us both to really enjoy it. Obviously, we all love to win. We love to see our little plastic space heroes stomping our enemies. Of course we do. But any day of the week, I would take a crushing defeat that's been a laugh over a victory that's been stone cold and silent and yeah. Oh, Tom, thank you. Thank you. I don't need more. I've got them all. They're all in these drawers of that room and that garage, and I'm running out of rooms in the house. But thank you. Thank you. I do. I need to paint more Evil Sons. I need to paint more of everything. There isn't a single army out of my 46, 47. God, I don't even know what the number is anymore. My armies that I couldn't spend a month working on solid. And yeah. It's that pesky day job with the paying for the mortgage and the house. Oh yeah, and the plastic models. And my lifestyle. It is not easy to maintain a figure like this. People think this comes naturally. It takes years of effort. It's difficult. Poor two sheds. The shed fund. No, there's no Warhammer in the shed at the moment. The shed is all garden tools. It's all tools and live roleplay kit. None of it's Warhammer related, though. The 40k stuff is all... Well, let's see. There's... The books are in the living room. The models are in here. They weren't ever intended to be in here, but they are in here. In the hobby room, and obviously the finished ones are in the garage, and the ones I'm not likely to paint anytime sooner in the garage. There's a stack. Sultan said to me when he came around, "Oh, have you got plans for a drop pod army?" Looking up at the 8 sealed drop pods, I'm like, "I did. Yes, I still have plans. They're not close." And the kitchen has some 40k memorabilia and presents and a little certificate that said Task Force Damianos winner. I'm not quite sure why they were giving winning certificates out at a narrative campaign, but I've got a picture of White Dwarf and everything. That'd been about 2006, 2007, something like that. The Dark Stars campaign. Great days. There's also a small pile of broken models on the shelves in the kitchen that are making their way from garage to games room, but I knocked over a chair. Crimson thinks there's no room for more stuff. There's always room for more. Yes. So what else? What edition has been your favorite, Paul? Yes. There's bits I've liked about all of them. I've had some epic games in all those editions. I'll tell you which has been my least favorite. It's 5th edition. Because 5th edition is where they squeezed all the flavor out of everything. It was as bland as overboiled potatoes. I probably skipped over 5th edition in my recounting all the editions because it's a scar inside here where hated it. But which edition was my favorite? I really liked 8th. I really liked 7th, and I really liked 3rd. 2nd. I liked 4th too. 5th, not so much. 6th, 9th. There are bits I like about 9th, but the style of the codices is a challenge. Yeah. All right. Paladin Wiggle said, but Paul, they really need to reprint Deep Strike 800 times. Yeah. There are some big benefits in doing the rules the way they have, and yeah, I mean, Personally, I'd have Deep Strike as a core rule in the main book, and in all the units just a Deep Strike. Or if they wanted it to be something different, call it something different. Yeah. Any heresy armies or plans for one? No and no. For a couple of reasons. One, I tend to struggle with historical games. It's one of the things I'm nervous about with Star Wars Legion because you're not in the now, you're in the past. You can only play games that did or could have happened, and they already have results. So I think, I'd really like to play my my word bearers against my blood angels. They never fought. Maybe they did, but just off the top of my head. So no, they never fought. All right, can't then. Also, if they had the same rule set, I would be much more likely to think about it, because then I'd be able to do things like Great Crusade. I'd be able to do, versus do like an orc compliance campaign, or taking out or bringing an Imperial faction to compliance, or tangling with the Eldar. So yeah, but I don't want to learn another rule set. I don't want to confuse my brain with another rule set. There is little enough space in it as it is. So no, sadly. This message was deleted. Do you think going forward they will separate or bring together Match Play and Crusade? Will they become more unique entities? From Morton Joe. Oh, it's difficult. I'd like them to keep them as separate entities. I'd like them to treat the narrative audience with as much love and care as they treat the competitive audience. And that's not me saying I want them to give the competitive audience less. Not at all. I'd rather everyone got more. But I think they'll stay as unique entities. You planning on getting the new orcs? So from Eldar blog. Planning on, hang on, there's a lot of stuff on here. Right, many things, one message. You plan on getting the new orcs? Yes. I do like the idea of Snakebites riding squigs. I think it's awesome. All right. Okay, they're not boars anymore. They're squigs. All right. Hey, boing. Sorry. To overthrow the false emperor. We all want to do that, don't we? And simultaneously protect the golden throne. Depends which direction I'm looking in. Okay, so I'm getting towards the end of the questions and things Crimson sent over. So big thank you to Eldar Blog for donation to the cause. Thank you to Mick from Crimson Get Well Soon flower donation. Maybe there's been some chat going on I haven't picked up on, but welcome to Alex Bing, a new subscriber. Thanks, Tom, for me needing more Evil Sons. You get. That is all of the questions. I'm conscious of the fact that I could probably continue rambling for, basically until I face plant the keyboard and lose consciousness. So I think we will leave it there for tonight. I don't know. I hope this has been enjoyable. I realize I probably haven't rambled about many of the things I could have done. So if there's anything more you'd like me to ramble about on specific occasions, if you're in the Discord, drop it in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, either join the Discord or or drop it in the comment section, and I will try and make magic things happen. I hope that's been enjoyable for you guys. As ever, it's been a hoot to ramble along. So if I get more hobby vlogging, I will do my very best. The hobby time is one of the things that I don't have as much of at the moment, so I don't do as much vlogging. But I will do my level best. Oh, here, let me just appear. Hello. There you go. Just in time to say goodbye to everyone. Well, thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you are staying safe out there with COVID running more or less rife wherever you are than it has been previously. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, folks.